Everybody was telling us that you have to make a film of the epic scale of Lawrence of Arabia. David Lean had 2 years to make that film. We had 3 months. And we knew that we were under absolute pressure. Also, we had taken up the challenge of going out to shoot in the desert. We had taken up the challenge to go out and shoot how films used to be made, which is go and take up the challenge of the environment and not sit in a room and recreate the environment. And this was a very conscious decision on my part, because directing scale is becoming more and more a relationship between a man and a machine rather than man and an environment. And we had chosen to go out and take up the challenges of the environment. You have no idea what the desert does to you. When I first went there, I wanted to know what it was like to be alone in the desert, truly lost. And I went to a flat desert and I asked the crew to leave me there. And I said, go away, let me be lost for a while and come back and pick me up later. And then they went miles away and I could still see them. And they would call me on my cell phone and say, you okay? And I said, okay, I'm going to switch my cell phone off. And I don't want to see you, please go away. And only Bob Richardson, my DP, understood what I was trying to do. And he forced everybody and says, I know what he's saying, till he understands what's being in a desert. How does he understand what the film's about? And so they went away and I saw nothing. I heard nothing. All after a while I could hear was the sound of my breathing. And if I walked, the crunching of the gravel or the sand underneath my feet. No other sound. And I looked around and there was nothing. And I suddenly realized what the desert does. If you can get over the fear of being lost, suddenly your mind explodes. Because there is absolutely no external sensory perception. And when all that is taken away from you, and then only the internal becomes alive. And as soon as then, you have no choice but to listen inside. And that's the day I realized that this was a film about yourself. Being in the desert, it forces you to think about yourself. It forces you to do that. And that's what the desert did to us, each one of us. So we started the film with lines of the British Empire, of being stone, of being structured, being in control. We ended the film in that last fight in the desert, and all I said, let's make the desert feel like water. Let's make the dunes feel like water. So the last fight with his last demon was shot in such high speed, and with me asking the actors to deliberately kick up as much of the sand they can to make it look like splashing water, to the point where in one shot the antagonist almost tries to kill Harry Feversham by drowning him in sand, which is actually a shot straight after you try and drown people in water. So these are various aspects of the design of the film that permeates so closely with the camera work, that come from the base philosophy of the film. So all of that goes on, and it dictates an adventure, and it dictates the cinematic form of the film. So in effect, you are not controlling the environment. You find the environment is gradually taken over and controlling you and telling you how to make the film.
He's disgraced the regiment.
Jack!
He's the best soldier in the regiment!
When James Horner and I spoke about the score first, we knew that we wanted a certain easternness to the score. We were afraid that in a film of this scale, the studios would not agree with us. Fortunately, we find that they loved it. So that was an insecurity. But what was the theory behind the score? Again, let me talk about structure as against chaos. Western philosophy is about will, and the score of the Western scores, orchestral scores, are organized, willful, designed, strong, battle-like, ready. That's Western, the classic Western music of that time. Eastern music, even now, individualistic, chaotic, unpredictable, no structure, no obvious design structure, informal, lax formality. And I thought, and James also said, well, if your film ultimately is the clash between East and West, structure and chaos, organization and individuality, let's do that to the score and to see where we go. So the score was designed with that in mind. Constantly Eastern singing clashing with Western structural orchestration. And then finally, when, for example, at the end, Harry Feversham kills the last demon in the climactic thing, out of this great organized orchestral score comes one Eastern voice. And there is a merging of the two. So in the beginning of the film, the rugby, you find the Eastern and the Western competing with each other for attention. Towards the end, as he's leaving Sudan, they are going in sync. They're complementing each other as against competing with each other. And if you actually have the patience to go through the titles, you'll find the Western score and the Eastern coming out and almost in the same notes. Whereas in the beginning, there's a clash of notes. That was the philosophy behind the score.